The human body is complex as it is, but how it looks like when still in development is something entirely new. And how is it possible to know this when we cannot see them directly with our eyes? Well, of course, we would need some very specific set of tools for the job. You may have heard your parents' stories of how you look when you're still in your mother's womb, and you may have even heard them say something about ultrasound. Well, this ultrasound is itself a prenatal diagnostic technique, a method that doctors and developmental researchers use to look into your mother's womb and determines how healthy the fetus and the mother is, and some methods can even use further to detect hereditary abnormalities or diseases that may be present in the unborn child. Now here's a tip. If you think that a definition is too difficult to be memorized, start to divide the words by itself. By looking at the etymology, the word prenatal diagnostic comes from the word pre, which means before, natal, which means the time and place of someone's birth, and diagnostic, which means to identify and detect an illness or a disease. Combining these words together, prenatal diagnostic techniques is a series of methods used to detect any particular disease or illness of a child when they are still in the womb of their mother. The prenatal diagnostic techniques are separated into invasive and non-invasive methods. Just as the name suggests, invasive techniques would require the contact between the fetus and the tool, while non-invasive techniques would not need to do so in order to carry out the procedure. And here, I'm going to give a couple of examples of both invasive and non-invasive prenatal diagnostic techniques. For the non-invasive techniques, we would be looking at ultrasonography, detection of fetal cells in maternal blood, acquiring the maternal serum beta HCG, and identification of inhibin A. Our first prenatal diagnostic technique would be ultrasonography or ultrasound, which uses a machine to allow doctors and developmental researchers to have an image of how the baby looks like when it's still inside the mother's womb. The machine uses high-frequency sound waves to produce visible images from the echoes which bounce off the baby's tissues and organs. This procedure is commonly used to determine the fetus's physical characteristics, such as its size and position, the size and position of the placenta, the amount of amniotic fluid, and the appearance of its fetal anatomy. The next method is the detection of fetal cells. This method is used to detect fetal autosomal aneuploidy, which is a condition where there is an abnormal number of chromosomes in the fetal cell. When used as a diagnostic technique, usually only small amounts of fetal cells can be found circulating in the mother's bloodstream, and these cells would be then scooped up and used to sequence the maternal plasma cell-free DNA. The fetal cells could also be used with fluorescence in situ hybridization, or FISH, which is another technique that utilizes small probes to find specific chromosomes that may cause abnormalities. However, this technique is rarely used as it may be difficult to get large amounts of fetal DNA from the fetal cells to be able to reliably determine any fetal abnormalities. The next non-invasive method is the maternal serum beta HCG. It is a common pregnancy test where the beta HCG maternal serum is produced a week after implantation to a concentration that would be detectable in urine. However, later in pregnancy, around middle to late second trimester, the serum test could then be used combined with MSAFP tests, which is a topic for another day. A high beta-HCG serum and low MSAFP level would suggest the possibility of Down syndrome. Very high beta-HCG level suggests molar pregnancy and choriocarcinoma, or in other words, cancer. The last example of a prenatal diagnostic technique that is non-invasive is the detection of inhibin A, which is the measurement of it that is secreted by the placenta and corpus luteum. A high level of it may signify Down syndrome or preterm labor. And just like the test I mentioned previously, the inhibin A screening test is rarely used on its own but is part of the quad maternal blood screening along with MSAFP, beta-HCG, and estriol. Now I will be guiding you through a couple of examples of invasive prenatal diagnostic techniques, the first of which will be the chorionic villus sampling. It is commonly used around 9 to 12 weeks of gestation, and the technique uses a catheter inserted to the developing placenta in the uterus from the vagina. With the help of ultrasound, a sample of placental chorionic villi could be taken and then used for tests such as karyotyping or culturing for biochemical and molecular biological analysis. However, CVS can also endanger the fetus by causing limb defects, maternal rhesus blood type sensitization, and morbidity. It also poses a risk of maternal cells being sampled instead of fetal cells. As many other prenatal diagnostic testing, CVS technique is used to detect birth defects. It must be noted that CVS can't detect all birth defects. CVS can detect chromosomal abnormalities or specific genetic disorders only if there is family history for that genetic disorder. Normally, CVS technique is used in order to detect Down syndrome. Our last example would be amniocentesis, which uses a needle that will be put through the mother's lower abdomen into the amniotic cavity to obtain fetal cells for the chromosome, biochemical, and molecular biological analysis. Commonly, the amniotic fluid would be analyzed by looking for lamellar bodies within the fluid to determine fetal lung development and to detect whether the lungs would be able to sustain after birth or whether the infant could develop respiratory distress syndrome. However, similar to CVS, amniocentesis has risks like maternal rhesus sensitization, fetal morbidity, and oligohydramnios, which is a condition where there is less amniotic fluid than expected. CVS also imposes a risk of contamination from maternal cells that makes it difficult to perform amniocentesis. Okay, so let's recap on what we have learned. We have established that prenatal diagnostic technique is a method that doctors and developmental researchers use to look into your mother's womb to determine how healthy the fetus and the mother is. It is also used to detect possible hereditary diseases. We have learned that prenatal diagnostic techniques are divided into two categories, non-invasive and invasive methods. The non-invasive methods includes ultrasonography, fetal detection, acquiring maternal serum beta-HCG, and inhibin A detection, while the invasive method includes chorionic villus sampling and amniocentesis. We have learned that prenatal diagnostics are very common and extremely useful to help expecting parents. Each of these techniques are powerful in its own right, but when used in combination, it may just help family avoid heartbreak. Thank you for watching this short insight into prenatal diagnostic techniques. We hope that you have learned throughout this course. If you enjoyed watching this video, try looking at our other videos by clicking the annotation on the right hand corner right now. Don't forget to click the like and the bell icon. You could learn more by subscribing to us because more content will be made annually. Thank you for learning with us.